Hello everybody. Welcome. I'm No02, and this is a DPS deck for Acts 1 through 3. Continuing our journey of having these sort of one and done decks, these universal decks that fulfill some sort of role, but also comfortably fit into Acts 1 through 3. We have the solo clutch deck that works for 1 through 3, support deck, a melee deck, and now this is a DPS deck. And as far as all the decks that I've made in this sort of category, I think this one by far is my favorite as far as building it, and the journey that I went on to get to this end result I think was really, really fun. Some interesting problems here that we had to solve with this deck. With all of the decks, we need to think in terms of, I needed to make a deck that worked with every single cleaner. A deck that worked on all three of the acts, a deck that fulfilled a particular purpose. This deck is the same, right? Universal on what cleaner you can play this deck with. Works on Acts 1 through 3. We do extra damage. We do lots of damage, actually. But also with this deck, when it comes to DPS, what weapon you're using is a big part of that. And the most interesting part of the journey, I think, was me figuring out how do I make a DPS deck that is not contingent on what weapon you're using. In fact, with this deck, you can use any combination of weapons that you want. In fact, it's super duper fun to sort of mix and match with this deck because in the end it all sort of averages out, and it's all about your personal preference and playstyle and what you find. Like, this deck is easy in the sense that we can literally take anything that we find in the mission and make it work with this deck. We can take literally almost whatever weapon we find, any combination, blah, 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 and make it work, and things like that. The key components of this deck is Admin Reload, Power Swap, and Shredder. Those are our three main sources of DPS. We look at Admin Reload as DPS because it's maintaining our average, right? Your DPS, when you're shooting your gun, your DPS is going up. It's going up. And if you had infinite bullets, your DPS would just keep going up and then flatline at a point where it's based off of your rate of fire, right? Like rate of fire, damage per bullet, things like that. But the other reality of it is you have a magazine size as well. So even though we have a DPS based off of, if we were to take all the guns and shoot 100 bullets with them, then everyone's DPS would be different because of bullet damage and fire rate. But all that sort of nuanced stuff, we're not super worried about. The point is that when we're shooting bullets, we're doing damage, and when we're not shooting bullets, our damage drops to 0. With Admin Reload, though, we can keep constantly shooting. And so, in a weird sense, swap speed and Admin Reload, that is our ability to keep shooting more bullets. Swap speed, in a weird way, turns into DPS. It allows our DPS to keep climbing, or at the very least flatline, and never have a drop. That's the idea. And the whole point of this, the whole point of DPS is obviously to kill the big mutations. Big, bad, scary mutations, etc. So not having to stop to reload and being able to constantly shoot is going to dramatically reduce our time to kill as far as mutations go. And obviously the big one that we're looking to hunt down is the tall boy, because he gives us the smallest amount of time to blow him up. Before I get into the deck and its specifics, what I meant by we can run all kinds of different weapons with this deck, the only major component that we need to be worried about is applying Shredder. So running like, running a sniper rifle, right? Running a Barrett, and then running the Belgian. The Belgian is the choice for Shredder, right? Like, we need some sort of weapon that applies Shredder. Whether that be a Belgian, whether that be a shotgun on your primary, whether that be a Glock Auto. The point is, with this deck, we're opening up with Shredder on our weaker damage weapon, power swapping to the bigger damage weapon, maximizing these two effects. 2 cards, 35% bonus damage, no ill effects other than that we need to swap around. things like that, right? But you can see how the potential here. We can run a Barrett and a Glock Auto. We can run a shotgun as our primary and a Desert Eagle. Like, if that's what you find, that's probably not what you want for your end game setup. But that would work if you like those two guns. It works. It actually works. In fact, I'm not going to bore you with all the math in particular, but I took all the primary weapons, gray level, right, vanilla level, and I averaged their magazine dump damage. What I mean by that is, if you were to take an M4 and shoot all 30 bullets and all 30 bullets hit and did maximum damage, you would do 330 points of damage per magazine. Right? If you took the AK and shot all 20 bullets for 14 damage a bullet, you do whatever it is, 280 or something like that. Right? I did that for all of the weapons, averaging the maximum amount of damage that a base level weapon can do with one magazine worth of ammo. Took them together, averaged them. Then I took all of the sidearms, did the same thing, and then averaged them. The only weapons I excluded was the LMGs. The LMGs don't quite work with this because we don't have the reload speed, even with admin reload, and the LMGs don't quite work. I'm sure, I think the only thing that works with the LMG is like the Magnum as your secondary, because the Magnum takes so long to shoot that it will actually give you enough time to reload the LMG. But I'll get more into that later because the reload speed is very, very important here. And we don't have a lot of it, interestingly enough. But I took those damage average values, excluding the LMGs, and then I added them together. Then I applied our effects, excluded Shredder for the first weapon. Our end result is, if you were to take your weapon, shoot it, right, shredding the target, swap, and then mag dump your second gun, base level, no attachments, nothing going on, you will do about 700 points of damage. Right, about 700 points of damage, give or take what weapons you're using, what range you're at, but it's all, the average is about 700 points of damage. On the high end of our DPS scale here, of our damage per magazine, obviously the sniper rifles and the shotguns are top tier. The ARs and the SMGs are about the same. They're all about the same, with like the M4, the M16, the ranch rifle being on the higher end, and actually the AK and the SCAR, because they have low magazine sizes, don't do that much damage per magazine before you need to swap. With that being said, though, it is important to note that reload speed and magazine size not the biggest deal, because so long as our empty weapon reloads fast enough, right? So long as our weapon that's empty reloads before our other weapon runs out of ammo, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. Point is, per swap is what I'm going to call it. Per swap, which is mag dump your secondary, mag dump your primary. That's going to be around 700 points of damage per swap. With vanilla weapons, it only goes up as you get better guns and things like that. 700 damage is half of the health of a tall boy, essentially. Half the health of a tall boy. So between mag dump, swap, mag dump, swap back, mag dump, swap back, mag dump, you've killed a tall boy. You've killed a tall boy. Now, of course, we hopefully have teammates helping us with this endeavor. Our damage goes up as we get better guns and things like that. I find that you can very easily kill tall boys and crushers and things like that super duper quickly with this build. And that's essentially our time to kill. It's swap, 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 swap. Two main swaps, essentially. And your time to kill goes up if you're using better guns, like a Barrett or something, or the TAC shotgun, or the SCAR, things like that. Ball play effect. The M16 actually does 16 damage per a bullet, and the SCAR does 15. Don't forget that. So I think I've talked enough about all these weird little nuanced things, right? Sort of get it. We can mix and match, and at the end of it all, you're going to be doing around 700-ish points of damage per swap, and then hopefully you have another teammate who's mag dumping, and that's 1,000 points of damage, and then either way, this deck is going to allow us to do a lot of damage to mutations, as well as a lot of damage, or as well as have enough firepower to hold off the horde by ourselves if we need to, and things like that. Well, the other thing I need to mention is reload speed. Keep in mind that magazine size is really important here if you're using like a Glock Auto, or if you're using a Belgian. Because you'll shoot the Belgian reloads super fast, right? But you go back to your AR, shoot the Belgian, go to your AR, mag dump your AR, back to your Belgian is ready again. You shoot the Belgian, now you're instantly swapping back to your AR, and guess what? Your AR is not reloaded. No, your AR is not reloaded. Our time to reload needs to fit inside of our time to mag dump. That makes sense, right? Our time to empty our clip, right, the fire rate of our secondary needs to be, longer, than our reload time. Otherwise, you run into this issue of swapping back to your other weapon again for the third swap, and it's empty still. You'll pretty much only run into this problem if you're using like the Beretta Burst that doesn't have any extra ammo, or the Glock Auto because it shoots so fast, or the Belgian, right? Things like that. You'll have that same problem too potentially if you run like a Vector. The Vector ends up shooting so fast that sometimes when you're swapping back to the secondary after mag dumping everything, you won't be ready to shoot again. So keep that in mind. There's also a graphical glitch that happens where if you're swapping back and forth really good and you're just barely hitting the timer, like your weapon just barely finishes reloading as you're swapping over to it, that your gun will be ready to shoot and you can shoot it, but your hands will be showing the animation of you reloading that gun, and it's kind of disorienting. Anyways, feel free to mix and match, do your thing, play around with it, etc. Let's get into the deck here. Hazard Pay Admin Reload for Resurgence, right? 1-1, Act 1. We're putting off our extra grenade here because we are the grenade. Yeah, think about that. We're getting right into the fun. We're just going to help our DPS get more constant, blah, blah, blah. And we just need to practice and get used to swapping back and forth, because I didn't really ever use Admin Reload before this deck, for the most part. So it takes a little bit you getting used to. But the idea is just, even though we're not really doing a tremendous amount of damage at this point, again, remember, gray weapons, no attachments, nothing going on. So long as you have two guns that sort of do their thing, we're not going to be doing the 700 damage because we don't have our damage cards yet. But again, if you're just subtracting 35% from that or whatever, we're still doing the average weapon dumps for the AR or our primary is around 300 points of damage, and for the secondaries it's a little under 200. For the most part, we're doing somewhere between 400 and 500 points of damage per admin reload swap or whatever, right? And at that early in the game, that's still about half the health of a tall boy. Pretty cool. Pretty cool here, right? For Blood Tunnel, though, right, card 3 for Act 1, we have Energy Drink. We need, the two things we're really concerned about is just having enough stamina and movement speed by the time we get to the crossing, or the Handyman. So the stamina here we pick up. But again, we're DPS, we're trying to fulfill that role, and so swap speed is going to allow us to, again, increase essentially our DPS. At the very least, decrease our time to kill, because we swap weapons faster means that we can keep pumping out the lead more consistently. Every second counts when a Reeker is charging you down, or a tall boy is charging you down. Every second counts. So being able to swap over to your weapon 25% faster and keep on applying DPS, when everyone else is reloading, you're killing tall boys. That's essentially the point that we're getting at here, right? And we pick up Fleet of Foot, going into Pain Train, just because of the crossing. When it comes to this deck in particular, I said it before, 1-1 is always the hardest as far as building building decks into, because if your deck is slow, if your deck has a gimmick, If your deck requires 3 to 4-ish cards to come online and start doing its thing, it's really hard to do it on Act 1 because the crossing demands 1 to 2 movement speed cards, essentially, if you want to do it optimally, like super comfortably. And you just can't do that without skipping, like having a money card. There's a lot of painful corners that you have to skip in order to get that online. Like we're skipping our grenade. It hurts. It hurts. Right? And so we're actually skipping some pretty rather painful, that's what I said before, painful corners here. Stamina, swap speed, movement, and DPS. Fleet of foot, movement, on your mark. We don't care about having on your mark here for Act 1, right? These first 5 cards get us to the crossing on Act 1. Really, we do have enough to get by on the crossing, just barely. Hopefully we have, maybe you're playing Evangelo, maybe you're playing Holly, whatever. You can play any character with this deck. If you're playing, what you play will give you those added obvious strengths to whatever you're trying to accomplish. For Act 2, though, our first 4 cards are Call to Arms. Same dealio, right? The sort of natural build up here for getting our movement going. We have our gimmick going. We have On Your Mark specifically for the Handyman, which is card 5. That's because there's infinite hordes, and so because of that reason, we need infinite ammo. Admin Reload allows us to put out a lot of bullets if we want to, so there's a lot of power here. You can go real crazy and run out of ammo real fast. Admin Reload works the best, obviously, when you're shooting at hordes of zombies or mutations. So for the most part, don't go running around just killing straggler zombies and unloading your magazine and swapping because it's fun. Like, you're just going to run out of bullets that way. So leave the killing the random map zombies to somebody else on your team, or be conservative with yourself, things like that. But On Your Mark is specifically for Handyman. For Act 3, the first 5 cards are further afield, and it's just we establish everything nice and comfortably here. We have the extra movement speed, our gimmick, our money, and infinite ammo on further afield. Nothing in particular there. So, On Your Mark's pretty universal as far as when hordes trigger, you get ammo, and hordes trigger on every map pretty much no matter what. For Act 1, card 6 is Clean Sweep. Grenade Pouch, universally good. For Act 3, again, just universally good, but for Act 2 and Act 3, Act 2 is Pipe Cleaners, and you're in a tight confined space, so having an extra grenade to blow stuff up, or an extra pipe bomb if you don't believe your team is capable of throwing a pipe bomb when you need to run through the first floodgate, things like that. You can have 2 of whatever. That suits your fancy here. For Act 3, I would highly recommend that you carry grenades because the bathrooms are not great holdout points here. On the bathrooms, for card 6 for Act 3 is Blazing Trails, and has the infested swimming pool at the end, and the recreation area where you have a flaming horde zombie timer on you. You're going to spend most of Act 3 in a bathroom, and most of those bathrooms have like 90-degree turns when you go into them. So when a tall boy shows up, he shows up at the door. Like, you can't see him approaching. And so our deck sort of runs into a weakness there where we don't have any time or space to mag dump. Even though we can, it's just, he's right there. So having a grenade to deal with those particular situations and having an extra one, critical to your success. Now we get Power Swap. For damage and things like that, there's no huge justification here for why we have Power Swap now, other than that we need to get it going. We need to get our deck beginning here. I think this is the earliest that we can get it without skipping too many corners, right? We have a pretty solid foundation leading up to, okay, let's turn our bullets into beasts. I don't know what I'm talking about. Let's start doing the DPS now. Because for Act 1, this is Bookworms, nothing in particular here. We got our extra grenades for the holdouts and things like that for the hotel. For Act 2, this is Hinterland. Kind of nice that on these big open maps, like Hinterland, having an extra bit of DPS here will help alleviate the temptation to throw grenades when you don't have to. There's a tall boy out in the open. Your team should be able to kite him around freely. We've all had teammates who just stand still and watch a tall boy charge them. Well, hopefully with an extra bit of power swap damage here, you can maybe save your teammate from getting crushed for no reason. But essentially here, Open area, more damage, means less likely we need to use a grenade, or we don't have to. The same thing is true for Act 3, which is cabins by the lake. Extra damage, we get it rolling in. For Act 1, Card 8 is Barroom Blitz, and we're sort of rounding out our damage here, getting sort of our full gimmick prepared. Not only do we increase our own damage, we're increasing our team damage. So if you ping a mutation, you do our power swap, mag dump, apply shredder, and one other teammate's helping you, chances are that tall boy's going down before you even need to swap back again. Things like that. And so having the ability to kill Reekers and tall boys without having to use a grenade, potentially, especially if you get the jump on them, like if you can see the approach, will help your entire team, and basically save those grenades for those sketchy moments. For Act 2, this is trailer trash, nothing in particular going on here other than that we get our damage online. And then for Act 3, Shredder, this is not a great scenario. I mean, Act 3, the card 8 is, Garden Party. And just any amount of damage that we can do here is great. For Act 3, you have the nest holdout in the infested greenhouse. Really, really long corridors. So actually, and plus you see everything walking down below you while you're up, while you're on the high ground. So hopefully here you'll be able to save all of your grenades for tall boys and reekers in the actual maze, because you'll have plenty of time to power swap shred any mutations that show up during the greenhouse holdout, during the nest, and you'll have plenty of damage to deal with them. Card 9. This is the hardest card. This is the card that I went back and forth on for a really long time. It's Ammo Belt. For Act 1, nothing special here. This is special delivery. We don't really need the ammo. It's a short mission, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Act 2, this is the Clog. Nothing special here. This, right, it's just extra ammo, extra reload speed. Nice. We need those things. But we really have Ammo Belt for Act 3 for T5. When it comes to ammo, T5 puts a tremendous amount of pressure on us to keep shooting because it's a constant horde event. But it's a constant horde event that doesn't trigger on your mark over and over and over again. It's one long infinite horde, and thus on your mark triggers at the very start, but we don't get much benefit from it. Of all these ammo cards, we don't want Ammo Scavenger because we don't want to have to run around and loot the house. We want to be on the staircase holding off. We can't pick up these specific, stock or ammo cards because the whole point is that we're running a universal deck here. We can any cleaner, any weapon setup, you can do it with this deck. Right? As far as ammo options go, then the things I really only see is we have Ammo Stash, Highwayman, and Ammo Belt. So I will say this. If you feel uncomfortable not having Ammo Stash, pick it up on card 9. Pick it up on card 9. Because when you're on T5 and your teammates suck or your teammates don't do a lot of damage and you're out of grenades for tall boys and the tall boys running you down and you're just mag dumping after mag dumping here, and your teammates are too slow to pick up all the crates, you will run into ammo problems. You will run into ammo problems using Ammo Belt. But it delays it significantly, I would find. Hopefully with a decent enough team, that won't be an issue. Keep in mind we do have energy drink fleet afoot, potentially some extra stamina from teammates or from extra cards or whatever character we're playing, things like that. So if the poop hits the fan, we could in theory start just running around the house. At that point though, everything's fallen into chaos. The reason why I've chosen Ammo Belt over Ammo Stash is just because this card really is only for T5. And I find almost universally, we need the reload speed kind of desperately. We don't need a lot of reload speed, we just need just a little bit, just enough to take the edge off. Because if we're running a Glock Auto, or a Belgian, or even the Tech 9, depending on what our primary weapon is, we can empty our secondary magazine too quickly, not giving us enough time to actually admin reload our primary weapon again. Between Ammo Belt and Cold Brew Coffee, you'll have just enough reload speed for the most part to make any combination of weapons work with a Glock Auto and things like that. The Belgian, not quite so much. Not quite so much. You'll need like an SMG primary, because and particularly the Uzi or the MP5, because their reload speed I think goes up naturally with their rarity. But I pick up ammo belt just because it naturally helps with the other. How it helps with everything naturally because of the reload speed. Gives us enough ammo for Act 1 and Act 2, like more than enough ammo for Act 1 and Act 2. We really only have ammo problems on T5 for the most part. And so I sort of make that sacrifice. If you're scared to do T5 with ammo belt, run ammo stash. Just keep in mind though, because now we have 20% minus reload on our secondary, you could potentially run into problems again where one weapon is shooting too fast and not giving enough time for the other weapon to actually reload in time. Just keep that in mind that you run that risk with ammo stash. Cold brew coffee. For Act 1, no big deal. At this point, between ammo belt, cold brew coffee, and really just ammo admin reload in general, we have the ability to hold off infinite zombies infinitely all the time, right? So the reload speed really not super important here, though it will sort of between ammo belt and cold brew coffee take the edge off of whatever combination of weapons that we're doing, making that Glock auto of yours work for this gun. For Act 3, again, sort of just a nice little level. Card 10 is a friend in need. Just sort of rounds it out. Nice little comfortable level just to pick this cold brew coffee up. The reason why we have cold brew coffee is for Act 2, which is Broken Bird. I love picking up cold brew coffee on Act 2, Broken Bird, just because we get the use speed. So the reload speed and the ammo belt reload speed, again, rounds out our ability to reload comfortably with admin reload no matter what we're doing. We get the aim speed, swap speed as well, right? We need the swap speed. And then the use speed for Broken Bird. So between energy drink, grenade pouch, and cold brew coffee, we have 75% swap speed. Awesome. And now you're swapping back and forth super duper fast, doing tons of damage, shredding stuff, etc. Card 11 was knowledge is power. And when it comes to stacking like damage effects or healing effects, they all accomplish the same thing. And so for the most part, damage on damage, there's not a whole lot of justification as far as why we pick up this card on any particular map. It's just that we had more important things to get before we get here. Knowledge and power is on card 11 for Act 1 is Bad Seeds. Out in the open, the weak spot damage is multiplicative with Power Swap and Shredder, allowing us to beat up Stingers and Wretches and things like that fairly easily. Stingers that obviously have an advantage out in these big open maps, so the weak spot damage will help us deal with them more swiftly. But between Knowledge's Power and Combat Training, we're picking up damage cards that have some sort of gimmick to them, right? We're picking up damage cards just to increase our damage overall, but we're picking these cards particularly because Knowledge's Power gives us the ability to see health bars. So when you have that tall boy charging you down and you are beginning to mag dump it, you mag dump, you swap to your primary, you mag dump. At that point, you're going to have a pretty good idea of, oh crap, am I going to be able to kill this in time or not? If you're not, swap to your grenade and blow it up, right? And so even though we're not running extra grenade damage, power swap damage applies to a grenade as well. So mag dump your secondary, mag dump your primary, make the decision, swap to your grenade, power swap triggers, the target is shredded, your grenade will finish it up, easy peasy, no problem, right? But when our whole build is about swapping weapons back and forth and sort of counting down how many swaps we need to do to finally beat a tall boy, Knowledge's Power is actually going to be really, really useful as far as making that decision of, do I need to move? Do I need to throw something? Can I do this? Then we pick up Combat Training, basically for the stumble. Now the bullet damage, again, is we have bullet damage, weak spot damage, the target takes increased damage, and then Power Swap, which is just damage. 1, 2, 3, 4 different damage types that are all multiplicative with each other, adding up, sort of mid-maxing the amount of damage that we can do with the least amount of cards. But we really have combat training here because of the stumble. With this stumble, almost no matter what weapons you're using, for the most part, you'll be able to stumble all of the Stinger variants and the Wretch and the Exploder rather easily. The Reeker, most likely. And then when it comes to stumbling the tall boys, we probably won't be able to do it with this build unless you're running a Barret or a Phoenix that have stumble attachments on them. But combat training will take the edge off as far as being able to comfortably stumble everything that's not a tall boy for the most part. So again, damage increases our damage overall, but gives us an additional tool of having more stumble potential, regardless of what weapons we're running, right? So again, this damage universally good on all these things. Cross trainers. For Act 1, I would recommend that you pick up the cross trainers. At this point, it looks a little weird picking up cross trainers here, but the hardest part that you're going to end up having is running up the abandoned mine shaft in Act 1. And so at this point, we have all the damage, we have infinite supplies for the most part for abandoned, and all the damage that we can hope for I mean, we could have more damage, but like realistically, we do a crap ton of damage at this point because you're gonna have weapons of blue or purple color at this point, good attachments on them, extra magazine size. You're gonna be bursting things down real fast. So all we need to do now is just get up get up the abandoned mine shaft at this point. Card 13 for Act 2 is Grave Danger. And as far as Grave Danger is concerned, cross trainers, double grenade pouch, superior cardio, not really for Act 2. At this point, by card 12 for Act 2, we've sort of done it. You're sort of done. For Act 2, I would recommend you pick up cross trainers and superior cardio, just because it's health, plus some extra stuff. But for the most part now, pick up the health. We don't really care about the double grenade pouch on Grave Danger, just because you piggyback all your supplies anyways, right? Like, regardless of what's happening on Grave Danger, chances are you're running back and forth between the safe room and the church, piggybacking. So having extra grenade slots actually is irrelevant at that point, because you're going to have a bunch of grenades sitting on the ground anyways. In fact, if you pick up cross trainers, when you're setting up for Grave Danger, mutations are spawning every couple of minutes, so having cross trainers will allow you to piggyback faster, reducing the amount of mutations you have to encounter before you actually start killing off the snitches. not super important, but at that point, we're sort of done with Act 2 as far as the deck is concerned. Act 3, though, we're picking up cross trainers on on Road to Hell, because of the running event at the end of Hell, at the Road to Hell. The triple gate scenario, we have to run to the safe room through the gates and have to wait for the gates to open up. The extra health, the extra movement speed, the extra stamina will allow you to take full advantage of a pipe bomb that's been thrown, etc., to get to the next gate and start making more progress to the map, right? But also for Act 3, I'm sorry, card 13 for Act 3 is the body dump. I'm mistaken. We have cross trainers here on 13 for the body dump specifically because you just need to run around now. You just need to run around and not die. So on the body dump, you'll pick up cross trainers, and then you'll pick up superior cardio as your card 15 for body dump if you get there. For body dump, you can, in theory, run double grenade pouch if you want to run extra grenades or extra pipe bombs. Just keep in mind that the minus movement speed will hurt you quite a bit, etc. So that's Act 2 and Act 3 sort of taken care of. For Act 1, card 14 is Rolling Thunder. Or the Sound of Thunder? The Sound of Thunder. And we have double grenade pouch because you need to carry pipe bombs or grenades, whatever it is. Whatever it is that your team needs. If your team doesn't have a lot of grenade slots, maybe you should be the pipe bomb person. Right? But the point is, when you're leaving the safe room for Rolling Thunder, Sound of Thunder. Why can't I remember now? You're going to have these extra grenade slots. Movement speed, stamina, no longer really that important. We just want health and throwables and our admin reload flowing, right? So for Act 1, you'll pick up double grenade pouch on 14. And you'll have pipe bombs for days or grenades for days, depending on what your team needs. and then just superior cardio for the extra health if you need it, etc. So, when it comes to attachments, the god tier attachments for your stock is a movement speed and weapon swap. Whatever optical you prefer. Magazine size is great for both weapons. Magazine size is great for both weapons. The larger the magazine size is for both weapons, the less likely it is that you're going to swap back to an empty gun. But also, too, the whole point of admin reload is that we're able to keep shooting bullets constantly. So even though we can swap weapons really, really fast and keep that lead flowing, having really large magazine capacities will just that number, about 700 damage on average between two weapons. That number just goes up, straight up, based off of your magazine size in general, without even needing to consider beginning a second swap. And then for your barrel attachment, whatever you prefer, compensator, range barrel. Range barrel will help your damage over range. You know what it does. Anyways, this is the deck. Man, thank you guys for watching. I'm sorry this video is so freaking long, but I really enjoyed making this deck. I think it's really cool. Any cleaner, any act, except for Act 4, and any weapon setup. Let me know what weapons you like to run. You can run Vector Desert Eagle. You can run Barrett Glock Auto. You can run the M4 and I don't know, a Belgian or something. You can, in fact, you can probably run an M16 and a Belgian, because the M16's reload speed increases as you find a better rarity. So if you have enough reload speed on your M16, you can probably do M16 Belgian. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the future.